When I started selling plants online for the first time, the thing that was the absolute hardest for me to learn over time was how to effectively ship my plants. In today's video, I want to share all the things that I've learned over the past 3 years of shipping houseplants across the country to try and help anybody else who is getting started with selling plants online overcome these hurdles faster. I know that this video probably isn't relevant for everybody, so if you're one of my normal subscribers and you're used to just seeing houseplant style content, don't worry, that'll be back in the next video. And if you're new here looking for information on how to start making money with plants, then don't forget to hit that subscribe button because I'm starting a whole new series about all the things that I've learned over the past 3 years. Finally, if there's a very specific topic that you're looking for, I'll put the different chapters in the slider bar so you can quickly get to the one that you're looking for. It's probably going to be a long one, so with that said, let's get into today's video. So I hate to start this video on a topic that's like a little boring, it might scare some people away, but it's actually pretty important. And if I'm being completely honest, I was shipping for a couple months before I even knew that this was a thing. And that is to make sure that you have the proper licenses to ship. Now, in general, throughout this video, I'm going to be speaking specifically to shipping within the continental US. I don't personally have experience with importing or exporting plants, nor do I have experience shipping in other countries. So if that is your situation, you may want to research this information separately. But with that said, shipping within the state, you are going to need a license, and this is obtained through your state's Department of Agriculture. Now again, getting started with this process may vary slightly state by state, but I recommend starting by going to your state's Department of Agriculture website, and if you're getting stuck there, typically there's people right on there that you can reach out to and they'll be able to provide you more assistance. Now that we got that piece out of the way, we can get into the more exciting parts of shipping plants. And personally, I think that there's one big decision that you should make up front, and that's deciding if you want to ship your plants bare root or in pots. Now, like anything, there's pros and cons to both. When I first got started, I shipped all my plants bare root. However, nowadays, I've transitioned and I ship all my plants in nursery pots. The benefit of shipping bare root is, of course, without having the weight of the pot in the soil, the shipping costs are going to be smaller, and additionally, you are probably going to be able to fit the plant into smaller packages because you don't have to account for that extra size. On the other hand, if you decide to ship in nursery pots, as I had mentioned, the weight of the pot in the soil is going to come in play and increase your shipping cost. However, I switched over to this method because I just found that the plants shipped so much better, and I had to worry less about the plants getting delayed in the mail, as if they did get delayed and at least had their nursery pots and some residual water in there, they seemed to fare a lot better. So ultimately, I decided that it was a better customer experience if my plants arrived in pots. Now, a little later in the video, I'll go more into the specifics of wrapping up each style of those plants, but the next thing I wanted to talk about was picking your boxes in your shipping provider specifically. Today, I use a combination of Fedex and UPS. However, when I started out, I was using UPS specifically, and that was for the fact that through UPS, the United States Postal Service, you can actually get free shipping boxes. You're just going to go to the United States Postal Service website, search shipping supplies, and then make sure that you check the box for free shipping supplies, and you'll see a variety of boxes that you can have shipped right to your door for absolutely free. They don't charge you anything, and you just get to have all these boxes on hand. Two caveats to note with this, because nothing in life is totally free. If you do use these boxes, you're now required that you have to ship all of your mail through USPS, which in most scenarios is fine, and I do overall like the experience with using them. You'll also note that some of the boxes are specifically going to be marked either priority or first class. And depending on which one of those you get, you also have to make sure that if you have a box that says priority on it, that you're only allowed to ship that box priority. If it says express, you're only allowed to ship it express, and so on and so forth. To add an extra layer of complexity, they also have what are called flat rate shipping boxes, and I would highly recommend staying away from these. Basically what these boxes are is boxes where you can put any amount of weight into it. Okay, I think there is like some kind of arbitrary limit, but you can put almost any amount of weight into it, and they just ship for a flat cost. The thing is typically plants are not that dense compared to their size, so if you go this method, you're going to pay way more for shipping than you have to. The final caveat that I'll note about these free boxes is that you get what you pay for, and since you're paying nothing, unfortunately they're not the best quality. I ultimately got away from using these free boxes because I found, compared to other boxes that I was purchasing for my plants, they were just getting far more beat up in the mail. I was having far more orders that I had to completely refund the customer because they were just showing up damaged. And in the long run, even though I was getting them for free up front, it was costing me more money. With that said, there are so many places that you can get boxes, and if you're just starting out and only anticipate to be shipping a few orders, honestly, there's nothing wrong with reusing boxes that you have from Amazon orders or other things like that. I also did this when I was first getting started, and never once did I have somebody complain that they received their plants inside like a box that I had previously used. Of course, you just want to make sure that like if that box did have damage that you're not using that one. But again, this can be a really great method, particularly if you're somebody who's trying to reduce the amount of waste that you're using. Now, I kind of started to touch on this, but but I want to briefly talk about how to calculate your shipping cost upfront so that you can relay that to your customer. To be honest, when you first get started, this is gonna probably be a bit of manual work for you. To start out, you might want to test a couple different people for rates. To do this, you can go right to their website and every single one of them will have a rate calculator on there. Basically what you're going to do is put in the size dimensions of the box that you're going to ship the plant in, and then also weigh the weight of the plant with the box inside. And if you happen to be adding any additional things that are going to add a lot of weight to the box, make sure to add those too. Once you have all those measurements, put them into the calculator and it's going to give you options for how much the box is going to cost to ship based on different time frames that you want to ship. Personally, for my plans, I like to opt for the priority or the Fedex 2 to 3 day shipping. If you are starting out right away with really expensive plants, then it may be worth offering the express option. However, when I started, I was selling things like coleus and pothos that were really cheap, so for people to pay express shipping on it, it literally would have cost multiple times more than the cost of the plant was, so it just didn't really make sense for me. On the flip side, if your plant is less than 16 ounces, you can opt to ship first class, which I believe is 5 to 6 days. However, in most cases, I don't recommend it. There are certain things that will ship okay with first class, like air plants, lithops come to mind, like succulents. But honestly, even just from a getting your package quicker standpoint, I think nowadays we're also spoiled from Amazon 2-day shipping that having to wait that long for a package it's torture. So anyway, getting back to calculating out your shipping costs. Once you input the size and the weight of your box and then you select the speed that you want, you'll get estimates of what it's going to cost you to ship. Now, one additional thing you can do is go through a service like Shipstation. I've personally never used it, but if you want to be able to easily compare rates, it's a really great service, particularly for people who are new. It is going to cost you a little money to subscribe, but they also give you better rates to it, so that's fantastic. Finally, depending on where you're shipping off of, if it's somewhere like Etsy, they might actually have built-in places where you can print shipping labels right off of and calculate your shipping, and typically on those websites, you are also going to get a discounted rate, which is awesome. This might sound like a ton of work, and I'm just going to be honest, it is. And it took me a while to be able to get comfortable with just looking at a plant and knowing what the cost is going to be to ship it. But I can tell you over time that the more orders that you run through this store, you're going to just get really comfortable with what certain plants cost to ship, and you'll know what to tell customers up front. That brings us into things like submitting claims and what to do if there's a problem with your shipment. Now again, this is going to vary based on the provider that you go through. I have the most experience submitting claims through USPS, and what I typically find, although it does seem to just vary sometimes case by case, but typically I do find that they're willing to issue you a refund if your plant was damaged in the mail due to the box being smashed or broken open or things like that. It subsequently causes problems to the plant. On the other hand, I've had unfortunately scenarios where my plant unexpectedly got delayed in the mail, and unfortunately due to the fact that they are live inventory, my plant died in the mail, and in these cases typically USPS does not refund you, as they have written into their terms and service that they can't guarantee, even though they say priority is 2 to 3 days, that it will get there in 2 to 3 days, especially in situations where there's weather delays or COVID delays. That was a huge one for a while, so just keep that in mind. And with that said, this will kind of go into how you want to communicate your refund policy to your customers. What seems to be pretty common across plant shops is also passing along to the customers that the shop themselves is not responsible if there are delays in the mail, and unfortunately that typically falls on your customer. In my shop personally, I like to be heavy-handed in making sure that the customer always has a great experience. So if that means I eat the cost of a plant that died in shipment, then that's just how I like to run my business, but ultimately it's up to you. Just make sure that you document this very clearly somewhere, either on your website or on your Etsy store or wherever you're selling off of, so that your customers clearly have a place that they can see this. And if there is an issue between you and your customer, you can point them back to this public document in the event that there is a situation with the plant arriving unhealthy. One final thing that I'll get into before I talk about how to wrap up plants for shipment specifically is addressing stickers on the outside of the box. Now, throughout the entire time that I've shipped plants, I've always been a big fan of putting stickers on the box that say things like live plants inside, handle with care, handle with love. One second, let me show you. These were the old stickers I used. If you like them, you can buy them on Amazon. These are the stickers that I use nowadays. Do note that even though you're including these stickers on the box, I typically find that the postal workers really don't care if there's live plants in there, and it doesn't seem like it changes the way that they're going to handle the boxes. Understandably so. I'm not saying they should. They're very busy people and they have a lot of work to do. However, the reason that I like to include them personally is I feel like it shows my customers that we're doing everything that we can to try and make the experience of the plane showing up as good as they can. But with all that said, let's start to talk about methods for actually shipping your plants. Now, I'm going to start out today talking about how to ship plants inside pots, and I actually have a sample box here from my shop specifically. So one of the very first things that you're going to want to note is to try and fill in any dead space inside of your box. This one applies whether you're shipping bare root or in pot, but by filling up all the dead space in there, it's going to minimize the amount of space that your plants have to move around. These days I like to use a brown packing paper, but you can literally use anything. I've used old newspaper in the past. That polyfill that you can get at craft stores is actually really fantastic, although do note if you're shipping things like cacti or succulents, it kind of gets like stuck inside of them. You can use packing peanuts, you can use bubble wrap. Honestly, anything that you have laying around is totally fine. It's one of those things, I've used totally ridiculous stuff to put inside my boxes and I've never had a single person complain about how the plant is packed in there. They're just happy that the plant shows up well. Now that brings us into the individual plants. So one thing that we started doing is including these wooden dowels inside every plant pot. And this is really great because if the box is smashed down from the top, it actually prevents it from getting totally smashed down. It just adds a little protection layer. And personally, after the fact, I know a lot of people say that they even like to use these as little trellises. So if you get one, don't throw it away. Now, if you look, you'll see that the plant's foliage is wrapped. And again, regardless of which method that you're shipping in, I highly recommend doing this. I just like to use this butcher style paper, but you can literally use anything. There's been times where I've used like wrapping paper, I've used computer paper. I have literally used everything and anything. I have no shame. So just make sure that you wrap your foliage. And this will probably make more sense as I start to unwrap this, but like if you have a very foliage-y plant, like wrap, like basically, oh god, I need someone to demonstrate. Okay, we've got Miss Lemon Lime Pops here to help us demonstrate. But basically, so I've ordered plants from other people online, and what they do is they wrap up the foliage, but they like fold the leaves down, and this drives me nuts. Please don't do this. I find that when you fold the foliage down, it might save you space for shipping, and you might not like, you know, have to pay as much, but literally your plant is going to arrive damaged and the leaves are going to be bent. Please just like, oh my god, don't do it. Instead, what you're going to want to do is when you're wrapping this up, take all your foliage. I literally need like a third hand right now because this guy's a big boy, but take all your foliage and just push it all upwards, and it's going to fold in on itself like this. Something important to note, which like took me way longer to realize than it should have, is that as you do this, your plant is going to be taller. So if you're initially looking at your plant and you're like, it's about a foot tall, when you push it upright, now suddenly it's like 2 feet tall. So just be sure that you have a box on hand to accommodate that. But I promise you, by pushing your leaves up this way, they're going to transport so much better. So the next thing that you're gonna wanna do is secure the plant in the pot. Now we do this in 2 places. The first is that we put a rubber band right around the base on the outside of the paper. Again, you'll see as I open this, the leaves are just going to perfectly fall out. But then you'll notice that there is a second rubber band around here again because we have this plastic bag on here. And this plastic bag is going to do 2 great things. First of all, it's going to catch the soil that falls out of the bottom or the top. If you've ever ordered plants online, you probably know the experience of getting the box and like as you're bringing it into your house, there's soil like leaking out of the bottom corners of the box. This is going to prevent that. But additionally, it's going to help retain the moisture inside the pot so that if it is stuck in transport for longer than you expected, it's not going to dry out, which obviously is going to result in the plant dying. So a few bonuses in doing that. Let's get this guy out of his bag, and then I will show you guys the final thing that we do, just putting this fiber on the top of the soil. And again, it's just one more thing that keeps the soil in the pot and also helps retain the moisture inside of the pot. Now you don't have to use this specifically. For a very long time, I just use paper towels. You can tape like computer paper over it, whatever you're feeling. And finally, as you can see, we have our unboxed plant. I think it's looking pretty sexy if I do say so myself. And again, after years of shipping, this is the method that I find to have the most success with. However, I know one of the biggest things day one is cutting down on cost. So if you do want to go the route of shipping bare root, let me show you how I do that. So I was having trouble finding a rooty cutting. So we have this cutting, it doesn't have roots yet, but let's just pretend that it does. If I was starting out with this plant in the pot, basically I would just depot it and then massage off the soil as well as I could. It doesn't have to be perfect. Additionally, depending on how the roots are in the soil, running it under some water may help get the soil out from around the roots. And now you have your plant that you want to ship. I would start out with my handy dandy paper towel, and depending on how big the root ball was, I'd either, grab a single piece or multiple pieces, and I would start at the corner and just wrap plants up like so, being sure not to go too far up the plant and mostly just focus on wrapping up the roots until you have this nice little root ball. From there, I would take this and I would either run it under some water or I would dip it inside water. Here, I would take my rusty trusty press and seal Glad wrap, and then not super tight, but just applying a light amount of pressure to lock things in. I would wrap the plant's roots up in this press and seal. And basically that would do the same thing that you were seeing with that plastic bag on the bottom of the pot before. It would just lock in the moisture that was inside that paper towel. Now, if you don't want to use the press and seal method, you can use like a Ziploc bag. And in that case, you can actually usually even put the entire plant inside. Really up to you, but I do recommend covering it with some type of plastic to make sure that it doesn't dry out completely, because trust me, in a matter of hours, it will dry out if it's just shipping in the mail. Finally, the last thing that you'll want to do, get a piece of paper that you can use to wrap up the foliage. Now again, I use the brown foliage paper, but you can literally use anything. Again, remember to fold the foliage up, not down, and loosely wrap your foliage like it is a little taco. In the end, you will have something that looks like this. I literally don't think I have any tape in my house right now, but you would want to tape shut this brown piece of paper. And then finally stick this inside a box, fill up the dead space around this package, adhere your shipping label, and you're ready to get it out the door. The final important thing to note is how to ship during extreme weather situations. Right now it's the middle of summer and I live in Phoenix, Arizona. Right now it's not uncommon for it to be over 100 degrees every day. And while it might sound like that would be detrimental to shipping plants, personally in my experience, they actually fare pretty well in that weather. While I don't think the inside of the trucks are climate controlled, I do think that they're cool enough that it doesn't have a negative impact on the plants, particularly if they're shipping in pots and are well watered. However, the bigger concern is shipping during cold weather. It is very common to have your plants arrive dead if they're shipping through very cold climates. With that said, there are things that you can do to prevent it. Uni heat packs seem to be like the industry standard in what people use. I've always had great experience with them. They're 72-hour heat packs that you're going to want to affix to the side of the box. They maintain a surface temperature of 100 degrees, which is going to radiate throughout your box and make it comfortable for plants. One thing that I don't see a lot of people talk about with these, however, though, is that they're only rated for 32 degrees Fahrenheit or 0 degrees Celsius. So if it does drop below freezing, these are not guaranteed to be effective, and that is something that you should make sure to pass along to your buyers. I previously used to live in Buffalo, New York, and on the flip side there, it's not uncommon throughout the winter that you can have temperatures in the single digits throughout most of the winter. And in that case, what you're likely going to want to do is hold your plants for your customers until the weather is safe enough to ship. Again, you're going to want to communicate this as soon as you can to your customers. Don't just like not tell them that you're going to hold their plants for, 3 weeks, because they're probably going to be upset. But communicate this to them, let them know, and people are typically very understanding and very appreciative of you doing this. With that said, I think that's just about everything you need to know about shipping plants in the mail. However, if there's any topics that I forgot to mention, don't hesitate to ask questions down in the comments below. And additionally, if there's other topics that you'd be interested in learning about as it relates to starting a plant business, then drop those in the comments too so I can make those videos for you guys. If you haven't checked it out already, then go watch my video on all the different ways that you can make money using houseplants. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and thanks so much for sticking around until the end. I hope to see you guys in the next video.